Hello, I'm Brandon Perna, host of That's Good Sports, a 10-minute-ish daily NFL comedy podcast. Have you ever wished for a crappy version of The Daily Show, but only about the NFL? Then, first and foremost, I implore you to dream much bigger. Secondly, I would recommend subscribing to That's Good Sports. Every weekday, I will be giving you NFL news, telling questionable jokes, and swearing just enough so you won't ever be able to listen with your kids in the room or car. I don't ask for a lot, but if you don't subscribe on iTunes, my wife said she will leave me. Thanks, and I look forward to putting my voice in your ear holes.
That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind. Columbia, this is... This is Houston, AOS, over.
All right, we're back. Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Knicks Wall Podcast. It's a new season. We're getting ready for all the excitement coming up ahead. New season, still on the Blue Wire Podcast Network. Still got all that good stuff going on at the knickswall.com. You can still follow us at the Knicks Wall at TKW Podcast. I'm Anthony Corbo at Corbo Anthony, and I've got my co-host with me today, Kyle Maggio. What is up, my man?
Not much, man. I'm actually genuinely excited to be back. So
It's been a minute since we could actually talk about basketball. Like I felt like all the World Cup coverage was kind of handled, and the only reason Knicks fans were watching was for like Frank Ntilikina. So I'm not. So it seemed like a good time to take a little bit of time off there. But here we are. We're doing our thing. So I think what we're going to do today is Kyle and I have both prepared a list of a few questions we have going into this season. And Kyle's seen my list. I have not seen Kyle's list, but I'm fine with that. I'm going to keep it just that way. And I guess kind of like the goal of what we're trying to get to here is, here are the big questions that we have. Here's what's going on here's what's running through our mind as we start to look forward to training camp. And, onward beyond that to preseason, and then finally to playing some games again. So kind of, we're going to use this as our opportunity to learn what we should be on the lookout for this upcoming season. We're gonna start by asking the questions, and then from there we'll give you guys, maybe next week, maybe in the future, just kind of rolling down the ladder. We're going to start throwing out some things for you guys to look out for. And I'm just hoping this conversation helps to influence that a little bit. So, I guess, do you have anything you want to throw in there, Kyle? Anything about how happy we are to see the people again?
No, I'm just happy. And I know over the summer and kind of as we finished last season, a lot of you guys were a lot more engaging with us on different platforms, whether it was Facebook or, Twitter's obviously where that's our bread and butter. That's where you find us most frequently. But even on Instagram a little bit, some of you guys reach out about the pod and things that, you listen to us about. So keep doing that. We love that. We love hearing back from you guys. That's why we do this. It's not to just talk into a void. So if you got something to say, always let us know. We're always happy to debate and talk. And and it just seemed like that was really picking up kind of as last season ended and then into the summer. So I enjoy that. I know Anthony enjoys it. So just keep that up. We love hearing from you guys.
Yeah. Echo all of that. Thanks for all the interaction on Twitter. It can be tough when you're balancing the day-to-day stuff to be hopping on there and talking to everybody. But, it always helps to brighten things up a little bit. So without further ado, let's just start rattling off some of these questions. So I'm gonna start us off here. I'm gonna start off with kind of the overarching question that I think most people are asking themselves as they go into the season now, and that's: are we overstating this? So you and I have kind of stated that we expect this team to be high 20s, possibly low 30s as far as a win total goes. Could we be overestimating that entirely, and they could just be another lottery team again? Because I say this because Gavoni came out with his really early mock draft projection today, and we had the Knicks at number 3 with LaMelo Ball as their potential selection. So it seems to be that people who aren't quite linked to the team, people who are kind of looking at the NBA in an overarching way, I don't think they view the Knicks quite as highly as we have before. So, I mean, could this just be a bias thing? Like, do you think that we're just overestimating the team a little bit and they're going to be a lottery team again? Or what do you think why do you think that's not true?
Well, first of all, I'm not as high on this team. I just think while there's, and I tweeted this out earlier, while there's like 4 or 5 guys I'm pretty high on as individual talents, even from guys from the last year's roster that we like as individual talents, like we haven't seen them play winning basketball together. Like, so even if guys are taking some steps individually, is that going to be, contributing to winning basketball? And I don't know that it is, because they were horrific last season. A couple of guys showed promise, like Mitchell Robinson, first and foremost, is a guy that really seems like you can really build around a defensive anchor like that. But, the other guys, Trier was very good. Dotson was very good, but individually, like as a team, they played like shit. It's just the truth. Objectively, that's the truth. So I'm not very high on them. I think adding Julius Randle is a very good move. Everyone here knows that I've openly wanted Julius Randle for like 3 years. If you've been listening since the beginning, I've bitched about this for a long time. So I've wanted him. I'm very high on Dennis. I'm very high on RJ. But, with anything, just because I'm high on them, that doesn't mean it's going to work out, or just because I'm high on them individually doesn't mean it's going to work when you mesh it in for a basketball team. So seeing as how bad they were last year, and they basically added a bunch of middling players and Julius Randle and RJ, I don't know that that's enough to really be a good team or even a halfway decent team. I think they're just going to be bad, but like regular Knicks bad is what I'll call it. Like not even low 30s. Like I initially said like 24, 25 wins. But considering I'm expecting Dennis to take a considerable leap this year, I'm expecting RJ to not be a turd when he gets on the court. I'm expecting him to be a good basketball player pretty quickly, at least offensively. And Julius, I think, is still going to, give you buckets. And if Mitch is the same player that he was last year, I think there's a chance that they could exceed 30. But like, that shouldn't be the default. Like, this isn't 2K where every player gradually improves every year. Like, it would take a lot of things going right and a lot of guys developing continuously in order for them to break 30. So I got them like, if you ask me now, I'd probably say 26, 27 wins. I don't have them over 30. I just can't. To me, that's nuts. Like they didn't do enough. They brought back that same young core of players and added a couple of okay pieces around it. And to me, that's just not enough to double their win total. Not even close. I'd love to be wrong, obviously, but
no, I think that you're. See, this is really the dilemma that I'm finding myself in. Like, I kind of agree with what you're saying around the. Part of me wants to say a little, like, I'm thinking probably a little closer to 26 to 28, and it's hard for me to imagine that this team is going to be as bad as the team that won 17 games last year. Like, I'm going up and down that roster right now and looking at it. It's like, I mean, Ron Baker, Trey Burke, Henry Ellenson, Hazonia, Hardaway, like all these guys, Cantor, all these guys are gone. And Moutier even, like, I feel like a lot of the blockage that was there last season is out of the way. And like there's some other, and we'll talk about that a little bit later, like the Knicks may have caused some more problems for themselves, with their signings this season too, as far as what rotations are going to look like. But, I'm just really excited by the fact that we don't have Emmanuel Mudiay in there just eating up minutes, and that should have gone to Dennis Smith or Frank Ntilikina over the course of the entire year. And I'm excited that Enes Kanter is gone and DeAndre Jordan is gone, so Mitchell Robinson can actually get some play. And all of those things. I think like you're right in what you were saying, where I'm excited that I think that Mitch is going to grow a lot. I think that we're going to see some like coherency out of a lot of these guys on this team. But where, just kind of, I think it'll be a little easier for Fizdale to rotate players in and out than they had last year. So it all kind of depends on where, the lottery is going to end up sitting this year too. But let's, because we got a lot to get onto, why don't you ask me what your first question is?
Okay. So, let's see. I think I've got 7 here. So I'm going to ask you. All right, let's just get this one out of the way because he's the second most lightning rod topic besides Frank Ntilikina. Where do you stand on Kevin Knox entering year 2?
This was a good one in mine too.
Yeah, because I'm not out on him. I'm not when I say things like I'm low on guys or they stunk, like that's not me hating or being low on them. That's just what it is. So I'm not out on him, but personally, I'm very low on him after last season. I saw a lot of low effort, a lot of inconsistencies, a lot of inefficiencies, and zero like negative defense. So where do you stand? Because to me, he needs to. They signed a lot of wings and like 3s and 4s. I'm not going to do the power forward joke. They signed forwards who can play the 3 and the 4. It is what it is. So he now has to compete with some of these guys, namely, Mook Morris. So to me, he's got to improve quickly in a lot of areas, and I'm not so confident he's going to be able to do that.
So I'm going to probably going to touch on a couple of my other questions I have in here too, because this was a little lower down my list. But I think it's important knowing like what, when I'm thinking what he's going to look like going into the season and what I expect from him. I think we need to set what his actual expectations are in a more firm manner, because he had a statistically woeful rookie year last year, but there was moments where he was looking comfortable. He had a really good summer league, his first summer league. He had an okay one this summer. He's for certain shown flashes throughout his career. And now, the expectation for me is something that I don't totally know what to expect, because it's right what you're saying. Like, they signed a lot of 3-4s this summer, and Kevin Knox is by definition a 3-4. Those are the two positions he can play, and you really can't put him anywhere else. So it's like, to me, what I kind of expect from him and what I think we'll end up seeing from Kevin Knox is he's not going to play that much early on in the season. Like you were saying, Marcus Morris, he's definitely going to get more minutes than Knox to start off with. You're also going to be competing against wherever Taj Gibson slides in here. Julius Randle obviously as a starter at the 4, who's probably going to be the biggest impediment for Kevin Knox, because he's going to be soaking up a lot of those minutes at the 4, and I can imagine that Barrett will be soaking up a lot of those minutes at the 3, depending on where he gets shuffled in and what the guard rotation ends up looking like. But to me, and then I'm going to kind of tackle another one of my questions in here too, which is, which players do we think will get moved at the deadline? And I'll kind of save part 2 for that for a little bit. But, I think that an obvious candidate there is Marcus Morris. And I think that, he's going to be playing a lot of minutes. He's probably going to be starting at one of the positions. If not, he's going to be a 6th man. And I think that he is going to be one of the guys who's probably moved at the deadline. And I think that's going to be the moment when Kevin Knox can expect to get some more minutes a little later in the season, kind of closer to February, or maybe earlier, depending on how his development goes and what ends up happening with Morris throughout the rest of the year. But to me, I want to see low minutes for Knox at the beginning, and I want him to be a quality player with that. I want him to have a little bit of like a Mikal Bridges kind of deal, except he played a little bit more minutes, but he was low efficiency. He was or high efficiency, low minutes kind of guy. I want Kevin Knox to be a low minutes, high efficiency kind of guy. I want him to be able to spot up. I want him to be where he needs to be on the floor. I don't need him to be having a ton of shots or be, having a ton of touches or anything like that. He was clearly overwhelmed with that last season. And I want him to kind of have a little bit more of a natural progression as he goes through the season. And then I'm hoping by like February, January, whenever the rotation starts to kind of like solidify itself and maybe thin out a little bit with some trades, I'm hoping that Kevin Knox can become, the 6th, 7th man off the bench and actually be able to give some high quality minutes at the forward spots. Along those same lines, though, when it comes to Knox, what would you say, or who would you say is most likely to get moved at the deadline? And I guess kind of a second part to that, who do you think is going to bring back the most value? Like before any games are played or before the beginning of the season, like what player do you think in February will be the most valuable and get us the most get us the most assets back?
I mean, this is tricky because I don't think they're going to trade any of the young guys, but I also don't want to give them too much credit for something that I think that they might be doing, but they typically never do, which is, oh, hey, they have these solid veterans who are on expiring deals. They're going to move one of them and we're going to get a haul. Remember when we thought, oh, they're going to be able to move Kyle O'Quinn and not get a haul, but like, oh, maybe they can get a late first or a second, like an early second, like something like that. And then they balked at the offers. Didn't happen. We've seen similar things, and I know everyone doesn't want to trade Frank, but, Frank has objectively not been good. He just has not. And when they got offers for like a couple seconds for him, reportedly, allegedly, they did not want to do that. They wanted a first for him. And Frank Ntilikina is not worth a first-round pick from what he's shown. So it's like, I don't want to sit here and be like, oh, the Knicks signed a bunch of these players this summer, and so that they can flip them, because that's what I think. That was my first thought. The way they signed so many players so rapidly, and it seemed like they were just trying to sign all the shooters. Initially it was Reggie Bullock, Wayne Ellington. Eventually it was Marcus Morris thrown in there. Bobby Portis is a big who can, he's a jump shooting big. He pick and pop. He loves the mid range. He can shoot from three. I think he was shooting 39% last year for Washington, if I'm not mistaken. So I think the Knicks were signing shooters, either A, in an effort to finally catch up to the rest of the NBA in that department, or B, to move some of those guys because you pay a premium for shooting in 2019. So I don't want to give like Scott Perry too much credit for something he might not do. And in the past, they've shown that they just don't do often, which is flip guys for on expiring deals. But I'd like to think like Marcus Morris, to answer your question, would be the obvious candidate. He's just a very solid. He's going to rebound for you. He's going to defend for you. He's going to step out and he could hit tough shots. Him and his brother, they love to bang down low and hit those little fadeaway mid-range jumpers on you. He spots up, catches, and shoots. So a guy like that, you can play almost anywhere on any team in the league. So to me, if they were going to move a guy, you should be trying to move Marcus Morris to get as much as you can, because somebody's going to give you something for him. Normally, that's the type of guy that a contender looks at the trade deadline and goes, okay, we got to go all in.
Right.
That's how guys like Timothy Mozgov get, have the Cavs send out 2 firsts in order to get him, because they go, okay, we have this one weakness. We got to show up. We think we're really close. We're going to overpay because we need that guy. So again, I hope the Knicks are smart enough to do that. I hope, like, if you can move a Wayne Ellington for a second, fucking do it. Wayne Ellington is not going to be here long term. If you can move Bobby Portis for a late first or something at the deadline, or an early second, like just do it. He's on an expiring deal. Like, don't be afraid to do those deals. I just don't know that they will. And that's what worries me about that question.
So I agree with you pretty much on everything you're saying here. Morris kind of is the obvious answer, like I was saying before too, and I think that when the Knicks signed him, I think that was kind of part of the agreement. Like, out of nowhere, last minute, $15 million 1-year deal. Like that's definitely a movable kind of salary move. Although you think they probably would have liked to get him a little bit lower, considering that I think they want to move him. But regardless, like that's probably the obvious move that'll get you the most value back. All the guys on team options, like you were saying, Bobby Portis is another good bet for that. With Ntilikina, I'm that's the one that's really interesting to me as far as trade deadline targets go, because like if he's not playing well, if he's playing as to where he's been so far, in his career, he's got one more year after this year on his deal at just over $6 million. And if he's not playing well, then that contract's not worth it. But if you try to move it, like you're not going to get anything back. You might have to take on salary, or you might have to even give up a pick to get rid of him if he's not playing well by that time. But if he is playing well, if he's finally starting to put it together a little bit, I don't know if I want to trade him for a first round pick either, because then it's like, okay, well, we have, now we finally are seeing that potential out of Frank Ntilikina that we've been hoping to see. But I guess it really is just a judgment call, because we're like, is this a flash in the pan, or is this actually, Frank starting to live up to his potential? Part of me wants to say just cash in on the asset then, and part of me wants to say, keep him because he's a relatively affordable player who you might be able to, keep around long term. But yeah, other than that, I'm kind of in the same boat with you on everybody. Like, they have a lot of movable pieces. If you can get a second for Ellington, do it. If you can get a late first, early second for Portis, go for it. I'm pretty much in the same boat with you there. So do you have something else you want to hit me with?
Yeah. So what exactly will the identity of this team be, at least offensively? Because last year, they very obviously had none. It was basically Fizdale let them essentially have a free-for-all with isolations. Like, that was the entire season, was just dudes trying to get theirs. And you can't tell me otherwise. Aside from a couple set plays to try to get Knox running downhill, it was a majority of like just Isozo going to get his, and Moutier going to get his, and Knox going to get his. Like, it just wasn't enjoyable. You had vets kind of trying to make the most out of their second chance, their opportunities, like Vonleh, and he was eating for a while too, and he was very good. So, but I mean, it's just, what do you think that this is going to look like now? Because to me, last year we gave Fizdale a pass because we were like, okay, a lot of rookies, really no talent on this team. We'll give him a pass. Wait till he has some real players. Well, now you went out. You got Julius Randle, who's a legit NBA player, 21-10 guy. You got Mitchell Robinson entering year 2, and he looks like a defensive anchor. You got RJ Barrett, 3rd overall pick, highly touted. You have Dennis Smith now, a full season of him where his back isn't injured.
So,
like, what do you think this is going to look like?
Those last two names, I think, will be the two biggest cogs in what this offense will look like. I think that, I think that the obvious priority for the Knicks right now is to, capitalize on RJ Barrett. He's the highest draft pick you've had in some time. I think it's really trying to get moving with RJ Barrett quick, because you don't want another thing with Kevin Knox where it's like he's just kind of, going through the season and you don't know, if he's gonna be good or not, really. And with RJ Barrett, there's already some questions regarding what his, actual NBA potential will be. Interestingly enough, in Summer League, we saw him as more of a facilitator early before he came on towards the end of the tournament, was able to pick up the scoring load a little bit. But I think that, the two most interesting pieces for the Knicks, like other than Mitchell Robinson, I think they pretty much think they know what they have with him, which could be debatable or not. But I think it's going to be seeing what you really have with Dennis Smith Jr., seeing how comfortable he would be, running an offense like this, and then seeing what his mesh is like with RJ Barrett. Like, those guys are going to run a lot. And if they can find some chemistry early on, I think the rest of the I really think the rest of the team will kind of go around them. I think Julius Randle's a good pro who has a pretty good range and pretty good defense too. So I don't really see a problem with him being able to fit in and do the things he's got to do. Mitchell Robinson is Mitchell Robinson. Like, he's just going to stay on the block and knock everything out of the air. Like, I'm not too worried about those other two guys at the position. And then it just kind of becomes like what happens with the other wing spot, and whether you're going to throw, because you kind of need a shooter in there. So it depends on who you're going to put in there. If you're going to, start somebody like Ellington even or something, or if you're going to start Morris or whatnot, but you need somebody to add some shooting onto there. So I feel like it's going to be what RJ Barrett and Dennis Smith, what kind of chemistry they end up developing early on. And it's going to be a fast team. They're going to have if I could call anything to the identity, I think they're going to be fast. I think they'll be pretty transition based. I think that I don't think it's going to be a great shooting team. I don't think we're going to be known for our 3-point shooting this season or anything like that. But I do think athleticism and rim running bigs, I'd say, are probably going to be the two ways that the Knicks get their offense going into the season.
They had better fucking run all season.
Yeah. No, like
there's no excuse for what happened last year. Like that's all I'm thinking. This offense needs to be predicated on getting out on the break, and with Mitchell Robinson, there's no reason that shouldn't be an issue. He, in basically half a season of playing full time, ended up finishing second in the league in blocks per game with 2.4. So give him a full season. I don't know if he's going to lead the league, but he obviously could very well be in contention for it if he finished second last year. Like, this should only go where he's contesting shots, and if he's blocking them or not, Randall's a very good rebounder. So either somebody's going to get the rebound. Randall's a very good transition player, and just go. That should be it. Block a shot, let it be altered, get the rebound, and just outlet. Randall he can push the pace. We've seen him do it in LA. We've seen him do it in New Orleans. Just dribble. Just go, get out, just start hauling ass, sprinting down the court. RJ is a good transition player. Dennis is a good transition player. Whoever gets the rebound, just get it to one of those three guys, Randall, RJ, or Dennis, and just run. That's all I ask. If they're not hitting threes, but they're shooting a bunch, okay, that happens. Maybe guys didn't take strides that you hoped would, like Knox or something. But there's no excuse with the athletes that they have on this team to not run. Like, that's going to be, I think, the biggest thing that's going to bother me all season is if I'm watching a very stagnant, slow offense by the Knicks where Randall gets a rebound and then he gives it to Dennis and they're walking it up the court. Like, if that's the norm, I'm going to be very, very angry. There's no reason that these guys shouldn't be just. That's the only way they're going to be successful and exceed expectations.
Yeah, and there will.
Like, you got to run, like sprint. Like, you got to run these guys out of the gym. You saw last year. The only point I want to make on that is the Kings made a dramatic difference from 2 years ago to last year.
Oh, good point.
Because they embraced the speed. They embraced De'Aaron Fox is fast. Buddy Hield's a good athlete. He can shoot in transition, catch and shoot. They gave him more shooters, which the Knicks filled out with more shooters last year. And that's what I'm saying. Like, if everything goes right for the Knicks, if Dennis takes a leap, like Knox took a leap, not Knox, like Fox took a leap last year, like, they still only won low 30s in games, but like, it was a fun low 30s. It was we might be in the playoffs, we might not make the playoffs, but at least we're in the conversation. Like, to me, that's acceptable. But it's going to take a lot of those guys taking big steps, but you got to embrace that speed. Like, enough with trying to implement systems that don't fit your players. Like, just Fizdale, day one in training camp, needs to look at his roster and go, okay, I have athletes. I have guys that love to push the pace, love to get out in the open court, and just embrace that and lean into that. That's the only way that they're going to exceed those expectations and hit that low 30s mark, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I think they will. I think you'll still have moments of stagnant because it's just stagnance or whatever whatever. I think that just because of them being so young and a lot of players needing to gel together and everything, like, there's certainly going to be games and stretches where things just kind of look stuck and there's going to be adjustments that have to be made and the rotation's going to have to get changed up a little bit. But overall, like, yeah, it's everything you're saying. This team is too young, too athletic, too long, like, just too fast to be to be stuck in a stagnant half court offense, and I think the Kings are a good comparison. Kind of, I guess, going along the same lines. I have a couple of questions about some of those players you just mentioned, but first, I want to tell all of our listeners about Harry's Razors. If you haven't used Harry's Razors before, I'd highly recommend them. You can join the 10 million who have tried Harry's by claiming your special offer by going to harrys.com/bluewire, because Harry's founders were two regular guys tired of getting ripped off and paying for overpriced razors. And they decided just to make some quality, durable blades at a fair price. It's just $2 per blade. If you don't like your shave, you can let them know and they'll give you a full refund. You can go ahead, refresh your wallet. Summer's over, but give your face. You don't need to let the winter hair grow in yet. You don't need to let that beard get too bushy. You can clean it up. Or if you're a beard guy, I know I am from time to time. You gotta keep it clean though. You gotta keep it well trimmed, and you can do it with Harry's. They have a weighted ergonomic handle. It's a 5-blade razor with a lubricating strip and a trimmer blade, giving you that close shave. They got a rich lathery shave gel to keep you smelling great, and the travel blade cover, making it easy to take it on the go. So listeners of the Knicks Wall Podcast, go redeem your trial set at harrys.com/bluewire. Let them know that we sent you to help support the show. Real quick too, just before we get right back into it, I got a little something for you guys from my bookie. At the end of a hard week, it's great to sit down, take some time off, watch some football. Am I right, Kyle? He said, yeah.
You are right.
Game-winning touchdowns on 2-minute drives, running backs racing down the sidelines with no one to stop them. There's nothing else like the NFL, and there's no way to make the games even more exciting than to bet on them. So do the smart thing. Go to mybookie.ag. No one gives you more ways to win than they do. MyBookie's got the fastest payouts and better lines than any other sports book. Don't forget, where you're betting is just as important as who you're betting on. And mybookie.ag is the best in the business. It's where I play, and it's where you should too. So join now. Oh, this is the important part here too. I missed that in the read. Join now. MyBookie will double your first deposit. That's free money right there. Just use promo code BLUEWIRE to activate the offer. That's promo code BLUEWIRE. Visit mybookie.ag today. You play, you win, you get paid. Kyle, my question to you is, let's start with Dennis Smith Jr. here. Obviously came over last season when the Knicks traded Kristaps Porzingis and Tim Hardaway Jr. and Courtney Lee and Trey Burke out to the Dallas Mavericks. They got back Dennis Smith Jr. They got DeAndre Jordan back. They got those 2 first-round picks. But, when it comes down to it, I see those picks probably as more of trade pieces. When it comes down to it, I think Dennis Smith Jr. is kind of the centerpiece of this trade here. So do you, just kind of thinking about where the Knicks might be right now, do you think that he fits into their long-term plan? Do you think that they're considering him part of the long-term plan? Or, do you think that he's going to end up being more of a trade piece? I'd be really interested in your thoughts, which seems kind of unlikely right now, but if you think there's a little bit of a competition between he and Frank, to see who actually ends up holding on to the point guard spot, because I highly doubt the team ends up keeping both of them beyond this season.
So in no way is this a competition. I want to make that very clear for the Frank stands that I've been combating all summer. I love Frank. I do. I wish him the best. I hope that he turns it around here. It would be very fun if he was what we all hoped he was at the beginning, when we thought he could be a dominant two-way guard. Maybe not somebody who's going to overpower you with scoring, but give you 15, 16 a night in his peak and a lot of good defense. He could pass a little bit. I would love for that to be the case. But it's not a competition. In no way is it a competition. He stinks. He stunk for a while. When he stops doing that, then we can talk. But, I'm a little bit encouraged by his play in the FIBA World Cup over the summer. I know a lot of people made a lot out of that. He still averaged about 8, 2, and 2. His shooting numbers were what was actually encouraging there. He was actually shooting like an actual guard, and that was fun. He was hitting threes. He was, finishing at the rim a little bit better. But, it's very good competition. And they did beat Team USA, and he had a nice, strong finish to that game after a really slow start. But we always do this with Frank, where we thought last year there'd be a competition because who didn't with Emmanuel Mudiay and Trey Burke. I know I even thought it was a competition. And he stunk. He had 5 good games, not even, when he finally got his chance to start. He had that good game against the Warriors. I think it was back-to-back good games he had. And then he followed that up with the donut game with 0, 0, 0, 0, and 0. And then he, I think for the next 5 games, he only scored 3 total points and contributed like 3 or 4 rebounds and nothing else. Like, he's got to do more than disappear majority of the time he's on the court. Like, so again, until then, like, it's not a competition. Like, Dennis realistically should progress from last season. Before his back injury, he was shooting better. He's shooting 34% from deep in Dallas. Obviously, his role was a little bit different. But, then he came to New York and subsequently hurt his back. But his playmaking was better. He was giving you 5 assists. His turnovers were down. His defense was a lot better from year 1 to year 2. He played really solid defensively, especially on ball last year. He has lapses occasionally off ball, but it's not a competition. If anything, the competition is going to be with that bullshit Elfrid Payton signing, which I'm nothing against Elfrid, but I just don't understand.
I forgot all about Elfrid.
Yeah, Elfrid, and again, I don't mean to like bash Frank. I really, really hope that Frank does really well and then overtakes Elfrid for any of those minutes. I'd love to see Frank play well and play in those minutes because I've watched Elfrid in Orlando. I've watched him when he was in Phoenix. I've watched him when he's in New Orleans. And last year he was better, to be fair, but there is a reason why he can't stick.
Yeah, I totally forgot he was even on the team.
He gets this rep as a defender. And I don't like that because we tend to do this thing in sports, especially in basketball, when a guy can't shoot well, we think, oh, well, surely he's even better at those other things that, if he's not good at shooting, surely he's a good passer. Surely he's a good, defender. He's not at all a good defender at all. Like, just really go back and watch literally any of the games. He is not a good defender. I don't know where that came from. It's just not. It's not true. It's almost never been true. He's gotten a little bit better, but he is not a good defender. He's a good passer. He's a better passer than Dennis is. He's a little bit better on the rebounds, but even still, with the passing and the rebounds, he edges Dennis out barely. So, to me, this is Dennis's job to lose going into camp. Like, he should be the starter. He should expect to be the starter, and he should play like the starter. And if he comes in and plays like shit, that's on him. Like, that's the only way that I'm viewing this. Like, to me, he's clear-cut the starter and probably the best prospect that they've had at that position since. Would you like to take a stab at this prospect, not just point guard overall? Because I would imagine Raymond Felton Part 1, not his second act, was probably the best point guard since Marbury. But you notice how we have to do these noticeable gaps. Like every 6 years, like there's just it's like Chris Duhon in a barren wasteland. Like,
yeah, I would say like
it's got to be Dennis. It's got to be Dennis.
Yeah, he's definitely the most promising, like, franchise potential point guard that they've had in some time since the Marbury days, or I'm trying to think even beyond that a little bit. Like, first stint Raymond Felton, the days when Iman Shumpert was a point guard. Yeah, it's not. We had a lot of Jose Calderon between then and now. So there's that. So, but yeah, I totally forgot Elfrid Payton was even on this roster. So that kind of just throws that question out because it's. I mean, if Frank's gonna be a point guard, he's third string for sure. And I think that Dennis, I think that right now Payton kind of projects as more of the starter, but I think that it's Dennis. It's like Dennis's spot for the taking. And but again, if he doesn't amount to that, like, I just don't see a world where he and Frank are on this roster after next season. or at least 2021, or at least see them both getting extended past their contract, because that's going to be the year when they have money available, and the Knicks are going to want to spend that. If they're going to give one of those guys, they got to give them new contracts. They're only going to give it to one of them.
Yeah, to me, if Dennis was Dennis from year one, where he was just scoring inefficiently, he was passing year one. I don't know where this thing came from, where Dennis doesn't pass. It's something that I've talked about on Twitter a lot. He passes like a normal young guard, like you'd expect him to. He makes reads all the time. He makes good reads quite often. When we saw him come to New York, he was diming guys up. He would head always up. Before he even crossed half court, if he saw an open 3-point shooter, he was flinging passes. He frequently was hitting Dotson and Knox, if you look at the numbers, for just really wide open looks for three, like not for mid-range bullshit shots, like for three. Like those are the looks that you want to generate. So I don't know where this came from, that he's not a good passer simply because he's a scoring guard by nature, but he passes, and he passes well, and he passes pretty frequently. So the next step for Dennis is to continue to be good at defense, continue to progress as a passer, because you can always do better there. 5 assists is good for a second-year guard, but I'd like to see 6.5 this year. That would make me feel good. And the other thing too with his scoring, he's a very physical player, but he's got to embrace that when he goes to the rim. He likes to, because he's so athletic, he likes to kind of do those acrobatic stuff around the rim, and it kind of affects his numbers finishing at the rim, which are not very good. So, and he doesn't get to the line a lot either. And to me, that's telling you kind of an obvious story there, where he's avoiding the contact at the rim to not get fouled, to try to make the shot. Like, go up, go in hard, go get fouled, get to the line. I know his free throws are kind of busted, but get to the line. Like, you're going to get more points that way. It is what it is. Like, that's going to help your efficiency in the long run. So to me, like, I don't know why they wouldn't extend him. Like, if they would have gotten a Kyrie or something, I would have understood, but there's no free agents coming up this year that are going to be, if they're better than him, that much better than him at his position. Like, to me, like, I can't see, again, unless he plays himself out of it, why they wouldn't move forward with him. It would take like Frank being fucking lights out from day one in a transcendent way, or Alfred suddenly becoming a lights out shooter. Like, it would take a lot of extremes to get outplayed by who's on his team, and I don't see who they could replace him with.
Well, give me this.
I for once expect them to re-sign somebody from a rookie deal. Like, I really do. Yeah. I expect them to re-sign him.
Well, all right. I want you to just give me like a quick 2-second answer on this one, because it's on my list. I want to knock it off. And we've been talking about Frank Ntilikina. What would he have to do this season to get to give himself a little bit more of a leash? Like, what, for us to be thinking positively and not with all the ifs and ands about Frank's, like, what would he actually have to do this season?
He's got to not play offense like he's, wearing a blindfold, is the best way I could put it. Like, everything he does offensively is like second guessing. That's all it is. Like, he's not sure if he wants to make a pass. He's not sure if he wants to drive. He's not sure when he drives, if he wants to go up for the layup that he decided a second ago to go up for. He's, like, there's always this indecision in all of his moves, and anything that he does on or off ball on offense. He's just never sure of himself. Whereas defensively, like, he just plays. He has an issue getting burned by quicker guards, but generally, like, he doesn't think when he plays defense. It's just instincts. Like, he's got to just kind of trust that. We started to see that a little bit more in the World Cup. I made sure I was watching those games. He's not there yet. Even in the World Cup, he played better. Sometimes you saw that a little bit more, but the thing is, we need to go from sometimes to all the time. So he needs to be more decisive. That's the first step before you even get to any of the results. He needs to be more decisive. To me, he should be playing a little bit more off ball now, and just sort of embracing being kind of a slasher, a cutter, and a spot up guy.
Mm-hmm.
Like, be the secondary ball handler to Dennis out there. I'd still love to see that combo. This is why I'm annoyed by the Elfrid Payton signing. I was really excited because I thought okay, we can finally stop putting all this pressure on Frank to be like the point guard or the backup point guard and just let him go out there with someone who could actually handle the ball, score, pass, get to the rim. And all Frank has to do is make those secondary reads. That's it. It makes it easier for him, and it should have made him more effective. So I'm angry about the Elfrid signing for that reason. For those of you who think I hate Frank, just so you understand, I think that's what he needs to do is be on the floor with a Dennis, and even at Elfrid, whoever, he needs to be or an RJ, if RJ is going to be the primary ball handler out there, he needs to be the secondary ball handler. He needs to be more decisive. And most importantly, he needs to make baskets. Like, you can't be a guard in 2019 and be shooting mid-30s from the field as a whole and less than 30% from three. You can't. It doesn't matter how good you are defense. You're just not going to stay on the floor. You just won't. Mm-hmm. Like, you got to be transcendent levels of defense, like prime Ron Artest or prime Tony Allen, to be able to do that. And he's good. He's good at defense. He's not there yet, though. So that's what he's got to do. Just be more decisive. Hit your shots. Like, that's the biggest two things that he could do, because he can't really control being the secondary ball handler because Fizdale, we don't know. But just when you do get those minutes, Matt, just if you want to cut, if you see a lane, cut. If you want to drive, you see a lane, drive. If you get the ball and you have a sliver of space and you know you can get a shot up and you want to shoot, just let it fly. Just if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But like, a lot of us fans are mad because he's not
has to be more,
doing
he has
stuff.
To be more decisive. What's your next question that you have?
Okay. How do you feel about having potentially two playmaking ball handlers start together in Dennis Smith Jr. and RJ Barrett? Is that redundant to you in a way, or is there a way Fizdale can make it work? Like if RJ is at the 3 instead of at the 2, is that enough of for spacing purposes offensively? But how do you feel? Because this is something that I've seen floated around, and I think they'll be okay if they're playing fast, but it is questionable to some degree.
Well, I think it's really interesting that we are viewing RJ Barrett as a playmaker now, because we've really only seen that out of him in small spurts, since the summer league, and that was really about it. Like, there wasn't a ton of that with him in college. But I do think that becomes part of his identity as he moves forward. So I do think that I think that it's going to happen too. I think he and Dennis Smith will end up starting together. So that they can both take kind of some of that passing, because neither of them are, I don't think either of them are really playmaking first guards or guard forward in Barrett's case. Like, I do think that they are, I think that having them both together could kind of like let them split up those duties, go a little half and half on it. So like, we'll have to see from there. And I do think it's a good thing. I think that that's something Fizdale should be exploring. And I just am interested to see what goes around that. Because if you say that you have, and we were saying this earlier in the pod, but if you have Dennis Smith Jr. and you have RJ Barrett and you have Mitchell Robinson and you have Julius Randle in the lineup together, who is shooting? How do you space the floor for that? And how do you make, especially with all the other forwards on the roster, how do you have these guys? How are you going to be able to let these guys kind of play together without having everything clogged up, inside the line? So to me, I think that having multiple playmakers on the floor is something that Fizdale should certainly be exploring. But for me, the question is what ends up happening with that spacing and how much shooting can they add into that mix?
Yeah, like ideally, I'd like them to start RJ at the 3, which is something that I initially did not want them to do, but I have since changed my my thought on it. I'd like them to start RJ at the 3, Dennis at the 1, and I'd really, really enjoy if they slid in like Damian Dotson at the 2. That might be too many guys who are young that we're expecting to play winning basketball, but Damian Dotson was really efficient as mostly a catch and shoot guy, or cutting to the rim. Like, he is very low usage. He almost never needs the ball. So I would enjoy Dotson fitting in there. Ellington obviously works in there too, but you need a guy who's not going to want to dribble, is kind of the way I'm looking at it. Like, Dotson defends, and he defends and he shoots. Like, that's all you need. Like, that's what you need between those guys. Dennis, for all the things that he does solid or good right now. Like he still needs to show a lot more with his jump shooting. RJ, same thing. There's promise there. He's very young, but he was not very efficient at Duke, and he had a lot of 3-point attempts, a lot of jump shooting attempts. So he needs to get more efficient too. So yeah, I mean, you got to put in a spot up shooter at some point. And if you do play RJ at the 2, then to me you got to put Marcus Morris at the 3, because Knox is going to want to do some stuff with the ball there that I'm not sure, and that's not a good defensive lineup either. So to me, like, you need to have like a Marcus Morris at the 3 if you're going to play RJ at the 2, because you need the defense and shooting, or you got to have a Damian Dotson, Wayne Ellington, like one of those guys at the 2 and RJ at the 3. Like, to me, that's the only way that would make sense. Like, if Knox is in at the 3, I don't know what the fuck we're doing here.
Yeah, I don't really see that happening. I think that Dotson is another kind of guy that would kind of slip my mind as we were kind of going to do this, but I do think he's kind of the natural fit in there. He's kind of that really low money, like Klay Thompson role, where he's not going to dribble much. He's going to be able to get his shots off. He's a little bit bigger than most 2 guards are, and that kind of gives you some versatility with where Barrett's going to play and everything. So I do think he's kind of the natural slot in there. Couple more to go through, then maybe we can do a little lightning round to wrap these up at the very end. So let's kind of look. Let's look through a couple of these last individual players, and then we can start looking at a couple more of the big picture team things. Obviously, one of the guys that we're really concerned with we have high expectations for is Mitchell Robinson, guy who outplayed all the other rookies last year. Came out of nowhere, 32nd pick, or 30. I forget exactly what pick he was, but in the 30s, like high second round pick, and came out and far exceeded his draft position. And now the question is, how he's going to look as a starter. The Knicks haven't slotted in to be a starter. Bobby Portis has stated that he's going to be backing up Mitchell Robinson. So how do you think that's going to go? Do you think that he, right now in his second year, Mitchell Robinson is, how old is he right now? He was born in 98, so he is 21 years old. He'll be turning 22 throughout the rest of throughout the season. Do you think that he is old enough to match up with, or strong enough, big enough, capable enough to match up with these other guys these other centers he'll be playing against night after night?
I think so, just because he's so long. Like, he's very, very lengthy and he's very athletic. It's one, and like the way he moves defensively, like he reacts very quickly versus, KP kind of lumbered around sometimes. Like, if he was at the rim, KP was a really good rim protector. There's no denying that. But getting to the rim was an issue, or getting out the shooters was an issue. Like, we've seen Mitch kind of be in every kind of situation recovery wise. So I don't know that I'm like concerned about him. Like, he's obviously needs to add a little bit more muscle, but he's so fast as it is. I just think being fast and athletic, and it's not like he's weak. He's just, he's a little light. But I think he makes up for that with how, high he gets up when he's going to block shots. Like, I don't know that I'm super concerned. Like, I'm trying to think of like a matchup that where he might get eaten up. And I think it's a guy that isn't predictable. Like, if he's matched up with, Jokic from Denver, where Jokic might be bodying him up in the post, right? Because he's a big body and he's super efficient and super good around the rim. That might be tough, because when you start to think, okay, well, he's going to body me up here, then he might throw a ridiculous pass, down the baseline for a weirdly Jokic assist. Like, those kinds of matchups might be a little bit tough, like playmaking bigs, but like, I'm not too concerned about him just like banging with guys, if that makes sense. Because I think, yeah, he's probably going to get shoved back underneath the rim, but then ultimately when someone's going to go up for a shot, like Mitch recovers well, he's going to go up and block it or contest it at the very least. I'm not worried about him getting kind of like tossed to the side. So that's just Mitch is the one dude that I'm super high on of all the, like, including RJ, Dennis. Mitch is like the one guy where I would bet a considerable amount of money he's going to be okay. And me having that kind of faith in him means that I think he's going to be okay, being a starting center and night to night having to deal with those battles. I just think what we saw from him last year, and his rebounding got better throughout the. Like, I just think he's going to be okay. I really do.
Yeah, I'm kind of in the same boat there, where players are, there's less of those like bang centers down low, like the guys who, like, once Nurkic comes back, like that's a guy he might struggle with. Like Jokic is another guy we're saying, but yeah, we're kind of few and far between with the guys who are like, we have longer centers in the league now versus the more like robust, post domineering kind of guys. So I think that with Mitch's length and agility and blocking ability, I kind of feel the same way. I don't see him being all that caught up around there. Do you have any other questions on your list, or do you want to do some do a lightning round of some of these other ones?
Let me just see what I have here to see if they're lightning round worthy.
So here,
yeah, I got. Okay. No, I think I got a good one that will make people happy because this goes off of Mitch. Where do you stand on the Julius Randle Mitchell Robinson 4 and 5 pairing? Are non-Knicks fans as low on them as Knicks fans are high on them? Because I expect, if nothing else, to go right this year. Like me being wrong about Dennis Smith, RJ, whatever. Like, we know Julius Randle is a 21 and 10 bucket machine, rebounding machine, transition player. We know Mitchell Robinson's a bona fide defender, rim protector. Like, on paper, it makes a ridiculous amount of sense for those two to be playing alongside each other. Are we being too high in expecting that to be a slam dunk pairing, a slam dunk fit? It's going to work great. Like, where do you stand on those?
I mean, I don't think it's going to be like a slam dunk pairing. I think that Mitchell Robinson could probably use somebody with like just a little bit more range next to him, like a Kevin Love or somebody would probably be the more ideal fit next to Mitchell Robinson. But when you look at Julius Randle, like, you're not that far off. You are sacrificing a consistent 3-pointer for sure, but you're not. But as far as like spacing within the line, like, you're not really giving up that much more on that. Like, I think that he still does have enough room. I think the important thing is that Randle will still give Robinson enough room on defense to be able to kind of hold down that block position and kind of be able to roam the paint a little bit and play a little bit like a safety in ways. Even if the Knicks don't employ that zone defense they were breaking out last season, for better or worse, like, you still want a guy that's going to give Mitch enough room to operate down there and see things coming his way. So I think in that respect it'll be good. And I do think it's going to be something that's going to catch the rest of the NBA by surprise. I don't think a lot of people are expecting that, or if they are, they're kind of low on it. Obviously the joke is that the Knicks didn't struck out on everybody, but Julius Randle is a good pickup, and he's going to be a good player for this team. He's going to be probably a number one option for a while, and maybe a second option for some nights or moving forward when some of these other guys develop. But I'm not through the roof over the pairing. I don't think it's like the most dynamic front court pairing that I've ever seen, but I'm excited about it. I think it's going to have some consistency there between those two, where they're going to lock down those starting spots. It's going to do a lot for how the rotations pan out and how this team kind of builds together throughout the season. I have one more player question, and then we will actually start our lightning round here. So this one goes back to RJ Barrett, and it's as simple as, what if he's just not the player that we're expecting from him? What if his trajectory what if his first season goes a little bit more like Ntilikina or Kevin Knox's? How do you think Knicks fans will react to that, and how do you think the team will react to that from there?
I mean, it depends, I guess, how far he doesn't live up to expectations, if you know what I mean. Like, I was saying, for a while on the podcast that, as we were doing, when we knew we were going to draft him, that's kind of when, I started locking in a little bit more with my takes. Like, I felt he had a really safe floor. So I guess it depends on that for me. Like, I think, for the type of player that people think Frank is, like, if RJ is a guy who's actually like, all right, well, you know what? he's not as great as we hope, but if he's giving you like 15 semi-efficient points a night, he's giving you, 4 or 5 assists because he averaged almost 5 at Duke last year. Let's say the playmaking translates a little bit in the NBA. If he's like kind of like just a good second or third option on a decent team, like you can't really be mad at that. Like if you get the way I look at the draft is, I know everybody wants a star. We all want stars. That's the dream. You draft somebody, RJ comes in, he lights it up like Trae Young or Luka last year, and we're like, oh, okay, we're fine. We got the one guy, But for me, it's mostly, did we at least get a good starter? Did we at least get a starting caliber player from the draft? Like if we get starting caliber players, like right now, Mitchell Robinson is a good defensive starting caliber player. Like to me, already that's a win. That's like, okay, we got one. Like that's a lock at it. Knox, we have no fucking clue. So like for me, if RJ's at least that, where it's like, okay, I feel comfortable sticking him on the wing. He can hold his own. He's at least going to be okay most nights, solid most nights. Like to me, that's okay. But like if it comes to the point where it's like, he can't shoot at all. The playmaking, there's none of it. Defensively, he's a train wreck. He can't get by anybody in the NBA. Like, okay, like yeah, I'm going to be frustrated. I'm going to be kind of annoyed. I didn't think it was going to be that big of a deal. So my thing with him is it's wherever his floor ends up being, but to me, he should have a pretty safe floor. So nobody should be disappointed if like he's just a solid starter at the end of the day. Like that's the way I try to look at it.
I agree. I'm more like, I'm wondering what he has to do this season for him to stay in good favor with us. Because we have a tendency of doing this. We've done this for the last couple of years. I feel like the only player we really didn't do this with is Porzingis, because he came on like right away. But like, give me like, what's the one thing you want to show? What's the one thing you want to see from him as he go? Like the one skill that he develops and is markedly better at the end of this season than he is coming in to the season with. Like what's that one thing that you're really looking for him to, even if it's a skill he has now, but like jump up a peg? Like what is the one factor that we could look at with RJ Barrett that could say that we could define and say, yeah, he improved this season, so he had a good year?
So for RJ Barrett, like what I'm looking for is just basically offense. Like I don't care anything about the defense. Even the good defensive rookies are often not good at it, per an NBA standard. So all I'm looking for is most of his issues to me, in terms of his lack of efficiency or his lack of playmaking a little bit more, where it was a crowded offense and a crowded college floor. He had no outside shooters around him. A lot of what Coach K was having them run was just like this weird, congested, gross offense. So the way I'm looking at it is he's going to have a lot of space. He should be getting a lot of open looks, from three or otherwise. So if he's just more efficient, if he's hitting some threes at a better clip, I think he shot like 30% at Duke, and he was supposed to be the jump shooter. Like if he's hitting like 33, 34%, kind of like Knox did when he had his open looks last year from three. If he's hitting threes like that, okay, like that would make me feel good. If he's assisting at a similar level in the NBA immediately, if he's giving you like 3.5, 4 assists right out of the gates, like I'd be pretty happy with that. So all I'm really looking for him is to just be a little bit more efficient on offense than he was in college, and a little bit more of a playmaker than he was in college. Like to me, that'd be fine. I don't care about the defense. The rebounding, I'm hoping, will come. He's a big body. He likes rebounding. He likes getting dirty. But if he's just hitting his shots a little bit more efficient, he's just making those passes, because this team has outside shooting now. They do. So there shouldn't be an issue finding guys. So if he's making those reads instead of taking like contested double team shots at the rim, like little stuff like that, more offensive based, because that's the way the game is geared in 2019, the way you got to thrive. So that's all I'm really looking for.
Okay. Quick lightning round. We're going to go just give me a couple of quick thoughts on these questions. Do you have any questions left you want to throw out during the lightning round? Or is this all me?
I have, if you want, I can kick it off because I actually have an RJ question.
Okay, go with the RJ one. This is the lightning round. Let's do it. Bada bing.
So, how concerned? One big red flag of his that everybody points out and that we've acknowledged before is his lack of kind of an explosive first step, a quick first step, which is kind of needed in the modern NBA to get by defenders. So, how concerned are you with that? Is that a big red flag, or do you think because he's a physical, big body that he's going to be able to manage once he gets to the next level?
Yeah, I definitely think that's a. I think that's a developable skill for sure. I think that's more of a recognition thing when he starts playing against these guys at that level. I think it's just something he can work with NBA coaches on. It's something that he can learn being around other NBA players. Like, we've seen other guys really be able to kind of, change their reaction time a little bit and do things a little bit quicker. So yeah, that one doesn't really concern me all that much. It's more of, how his shooting progresses that kind of gets me. Let me ask you this. At what point in the season, or what would have to happen, and at what point in the season do you think Fizdale would start to lose some job security? Beyond the hot seat, as they say.
For me, is if they're playing like they did last year. And that doesn't mean not just play style, but additionally wins and losses. Like, even if they're playing faster, like if he still has them on that same like 17 to 20 wins trajectory, it's going to get hot because you can't keep adding talented players, however young they may be. But you can't sign Julius Randle for $22 million, who I obviously love very much, but you can't sign him and then win 22 games this year. You know what I mean? Like, you got to show some clear progress. And to me, that's not like 5 games. Like, you got to win like 10 more games than you did the year before. Like, it's a baby step, but it matters. So to me, if they have like zero offensive identity, if it's just like a free for all of ISO ball and they're underperforming in the win column there, like, he could and should be on the hot seat because you have enough players now where you should be molding some kind of an identity. And even if it's not resulting in wins, you should be able to see players taking strides in those losses, like very clear strides, not just, oh, well, thank God Mitchell Robinson blocked 3 shots tonight, but they got blown out by 40. You know what I mean? Like, it's got to be closer losses, and you know it when you see it, kind of thing.
All right. So along those same lines, at what point in the season do you think that the Knicks would need to make a firm decision on tanking? Like, at what month, at how many losses do they need to rack up? What is their win percentage got to be before they just decide that, despite whatever expectations they had going into the season, they just need to start. They need to actually try to be going for one of those top picks versus just being forced there.
I think it's always the trade deadline, and especially in a year like this when, as we discussed earlier, you signed a bunch of vets who are solid. Like, that's the best way I could word them, is solid. And a lot of them are shooters. So if you have not a lot of wins heading into the All-Star break, and it's very similar to last year, you should be selling. Like, to me, there's no two ways about it. You aren't going to bring back most of those guys. So that's when you should try to sell most, if not all of them, to get some kind of young assets or draft assets back. That's, to me, it's always the trade deadline. I'd go with how young they are and how quickly things can go bad. I'd say right after Christmas, like January, you should kind of know what you're doing as you're kind of gearing up towards the trade deadline. Like, if they're really playing like shit after Christmas time and like you just can't get it together that first or second week of January, all right, well, start facilitating some trades and getting some of these vets out of here. Get whatever assets you can and call it a day, and basically resume what you did last year and just let the young guys do what they can do, and hopefully you get a top pick again, top 3 finish or so like this year.
An injury to which player would be the most devastating for the Knicks if they hope to finish above 20 wins? Or, let's even rephrase that question. An injury to which player would be the most devastating for the Knicks long term?
Honestly, with the value of his contract and with how effective he was when he was getting starters minutes, I think it has. I was going to say Julius Randle initially, but Mitchell Robinson. Julius Randle, if his contract was bigger, I'd probably say it, but he has a 2-year deal. The third year is a team option, and he's getting like $22 million a year. So to me, like, even if something terrible happens to Julius, God forbid, like, all right, well, worst case scenario, next year he's an expiring deal. Mitchell Robinson, to me, like, you finally got somebody who is low usage on offense, who could be the backbone of your defense and kind of help you mold a new identity moving forward. It's easy to try to find offensive players to fill in around that. And if you lose him when he's on arguably the most valuable contract in the league right now, and that was before our boy Mayar got there because he did not get a good first contract. Robinson did. So, we hope the Knicks are going to pony up from the second time around. But when you have a deal that's so cheap and he's so good already, like, that's crippling for the future, in my opinion. Like, even though it's not going to be on the books, it's just like, okay, so then we got a bunch of scorers again, basically. A bunch of guys who are just going to go out and try to score, and nobody's going to get a stop. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know how they're going to win. Anything that happens for them this season and next season that I'm thinking is good for the team, the future outlook of the team, revolves around Mitchell Robinson being better than he was last year. He was already very good last year defensively.
All right. Here is my last one. Of the new signees the Knicks got this past summer, the ones with the team options on their contracts for next year, like, Julius Randle isn't really considered in this equation here. But of Taj Gibson, Bobby Portis, and Elfrid Payton, did Ellington get a team option too? Or I think he was just a straight 1 year. But of all those guys who got those team option contracts the Knicks were experimenting with this summer, who do you think is the most likely to get picked up in the 2020 offseason? Do you think it's maybe none of them, and the Knicks are going to try to go out for one of the free agents next year, despite it being not that strong of a class? Or do you think that any of these players might be here beyond this coming season?
Well, first of all, Ellington, it does have a 2-year deal.
Okay, he does have a 2-year deal.
It's okay. The option. It is the option, but it's a 2-year deal.
Right. Okay.
Secondly, Marcus Morris was just a straight 1-year deal, if I'm not mistaken, right? He just got 1 year, $15 million.
He was like very last minute. He was a straight up 1-year deal. Yes.
Yeah. So
I think he's the only one who is new this summer who is only on that 1-year deal. The rest, I believe, are too.
If Bobby Portis was making less money, I would say Bobby Portis, because you need a stretch big who can jump shoot like that, but you do not need a stretch big who could jump shoot like that coming off the bench for $15 million. The only reason he's getting that much is because we need shooting and we need players who can do that, and no one else was coming here. So we had cap to kill, and okay, we'll overpay a little bit. If he was making a little bit, maybe they restructure his deal or he comes back on a different deal. I could see Portis coming back because you do need stretch bigs who can shoot. The most likely, I think, is somebody like Wayne Ellington. Weirdly, I don't know how much he's going to play this year. It's very difficult to project who's going to play. I have no idea what Fizdale is going to do. But him being like, I don't know if he's going to start, but even being just a guard, you can slide at the 2 or the 3, who's, again, a catch and shoot guy, a good outside shooter. You need that. And when we have guys who aren't very good at shooting from outside, who are going to be creating most of those looks in Dennis Smith Jr. and RJ Barrett, I think you got to have a surplus of shooters. And I don't expect them to sign anyone big this upcoming summer. So why not, hopefully, if he fits and plays well this year, again, I have no idea what Fizdale is going to do, but why not just keep the dude who is already here? You already got one shooter, just keep him. $8 million isn't going to kill you when you're not going to spend a bunch next summer anyway. So Ellington, maybe, I think might be likely just for, the need and the dollar amount. I just think, why not have a good 3-point shooter yet again to surround some of these guys with. I just think it kind of makes some sense, but I, again, do not know what Fizdale's going to do.
Yeah, I agree with your rationale behind keeping Ellington. The only reason I think these guys all of them might get picked up, or the majority of them might get picked up if they play well enough, is for that pursuit of those 2021 free agents and that Giannis Antetokounmpo class and everything like that. Like, keeping them on the books means that you will for sure have the ability to clear that contract, that you'll have for sure cap space at the end of the 2021 season. And you'll also have a bunch of expiring contracts that season that you can maybe move out and get, again, like we're talking about the low first round picks or the early second round picks. We have an entire season before we get to that point. But I just think that the pursuit of cap space is still something that really drives the Knicks. So I kind of have a feeling that it's going to be more what the money looks like versus how the players actually end up performing. But I do think that, if I had to pick one that they would actually want to keep around, because he is adding value to the team, it would probably be Ellington, and I would I would maybe say Portis, even though he is overpaid for what he brings, but it's all going to depend on how much that backup center position gets used and how he can shoot. I'd honestly like to see him play a little bit next to Mitchell Robinson, because I think that they would be an interesting space and interior kind of two players who I think could play well together in that respect, just because of Portis's spacing. But that's kind of a different topic. I would think it's either him or Ellington who would stick around. But yeah, I mean, there it is. Before we get out of here today, Kyle, after we asked these questions, after all this, let's give a little teaser. What's one thing you think you're going to be looking out for in training camp in the preseason?
I'm almost going to be hate watching for quotes. I do this every year. I make up my mind about what I think is the acceptable decisions that David Fizdale should make, and then I get very angry when it doesn't go my way. I feel like a lot of us do that if we're being honest with ourselves, but I digress. So I am hate watching for Elfrid Payton starting job. If I see that, I will personally drive to Westchester myself. It's a very short drive. I'll be there Monday for media day anyway. Shout out the Knicks for letting us come for the third year in a row. TKW in the house. But I will come and I will physically fight David Fizdale to the death. And it's not just rumblings of he's giving Dennis a run for his money. If I hear the word out of camp is Elfrid Payton is going to be the starter, I will drive there and murder people. I will be very, very upset. So it's given me the Moutier vibes already, and he's a much better player than Moutier is, but it's already when you feel it, it's going to happen, and you're already expecting to be mad about it, and it just feels inevitable. That's how this feels to me.
Yeah. No, I feel you. And I would say the one thing I'm looking out for too is going to be rotation. So I'll kind of just lump that in the same thing. The point guard rotation is one. What happens with the wings is another. The 4 and the 5 I feel are pretty known. But even beyond that, there are a lot of guys who could play the 4 on the roster. So seeing who actually ends up playing that position, I'd be really interested in. Kyle, it was really good to get back behind the mics. We're going to be resuming our regularly scheduled programming, moving forward from here. Thanks again to all of you for listening. Make sure you check out some of the other podcasts on the Blue Wire Podcast Network. Make sure you head to the knickswall.com and give us a follow on Twitter at the Knicks Wall, at TKW Podcast, at Corbo Anthony, and at Kyle Maggio. Hit us up on YouTube. We'll have the videos up there with every podcast too. And yeah, real excited to be back.
Yep. Season 4 underway. Season 4. So I'm very excited. Real quick, a couple things, a little housekeeping. I know this is already a long pod. I'm sorry. This is going to be very short. We hit 20,000 followers on Twitter. Thank you, all of you guys. It's a milestone. It makes us feel good seeing that number grow larger. So appreciate all of you. Any of our new listeners, old listeners that have been here since day one, appreciate all you guys. So thank you for that. On top of that, we recently switched over vendors over the summer. So we got some new merchandise coming out. We like the quality a lot better. Shirts are a lot better.
Shirts are great.
Yeah, so I'm real happy about it. We've got the brilliant Ryan Gray designing most of those shirts for you guys. So we're excited. There's going to be a lot of good stuff coming out this year. Last year was kind of hard when the team was so bad, but I think there's going to be a lot of good opportunities. So we'll keep it light and fun for you guys again. Last thing, make sure it's Decades Week on the knickswall.com. So, Monday was the 70s we covered. We had a nice breakdown of our all-time 70s team. Yesterday was the 80s, and today was the beloved rough and tough 1990s team, and Mike Cortez covered that. And if you're wondering why we're doing Decades Week, you might have noticed that we had another app from the ever-brilliant Ryan Gray. And this one is the all-time team generator. So this lets you pick great, good, or sometimes horrific players like Bargani to be on your Knicks all-time team. We give you a star rating for your defense, passing, shooting, offense, and we let you know how you did on a scale of 0 to 10 with the team that you've constructed. So go out there and try to make the best team you can from all different generations of Knicks. It's very fun. I've been having a blast with it. My team personally got 6.4 out of 10, and I had Patrick Ewing, Carmelo Anthony, Larry Johnson, and Latrell Sprewell, and I was livid in the TKW Slack Shack. That is a contender, and you cannot convince me otherwise. But that's why these games are so fun, is because we all have a different feeling about what makes a team good. So give it your best shot. Send us your submissions. We'd love to see them. That's basically all I got.
Yeah, I mean, that's all I got too. So until next week, everybody, have a good one.